Welcome to the Catholic Fertility Podcast. My name is Lucia Harmeling. I am your host, and I am so happy to be here with you today. Today, we're going to dive into the very first place I want you to focus on or start looking at when you are trying to get pregnant, when you are trying to conceive, especially if it's not happening. Because this one thing, it's not fancy supplements, it's not fancy testing. It is the foundational step that I take with every single one-on-one client to make sure that her body is in a good place to conceive. If this step is missed, then no medications, supplements, testing is going to do anything because you need this step. Okay, so what is it? Eating enough. I know that sounds simple. You might be like, I eat enough. I for sure eat enough. I might be eating too much. That's what I hear so often. I will tell you, there has not been one fertility client that I have worked with or one client over the years who, when looking at what they're eating, they're actually eating enough calories, enough protein, enough carbohydrates, enough fats, enough calories overall in the day. Why is this happening? Why are we in this place of our society as a whole chronically undereating? And it may not even be intentional. There is definitely intentional undereating, and then there's unintentional undereating. A lot of times, the craziest part is that most of the women who come to us say, I'm eating enough. I feel like I'm overdoing it. But when we really start to look at what their day-to-day looks like, what their meals look like, their timing of meals, their overall calories and energy in, it's not enough. It's not enough to support fertility. We're going to talk a lot about what that looks like. What are some signs that your body is giving you that will tell you, hey, I'm probably not eating enough? What are some reasons why this is happening and how it can affect your fertility? We are all about getting you into your most fertile state so that your body feels safe, it feels nourished, it's ready to conceive. Deal? Let's dive in. When women come to me, the first thing we have them do is track their food for a few days. We have a journal on our platform and they just track exactly what they're eating, their timing of meals. More times than not, the totals of calories that I see on there are very low. Let's talk about why eating enough is so important for fertility. Reproduction is non-essential. Your body can survive and live in this world without reproducing. It is a non-essential function that your body has. Therefore, when energy is low, when reserves are low, when nutrients are low, your body knows that it can survive without that. So it can turn that part of the body off, put it on pause, put it on the back burner, because it's trying to keep everything else working so that you are very much alive. So when your body senses that there is not enough energy, when I say energy, I literally mean calories. When there's not enough fuel going into your body senses that something's off. I always say this to clients is your body does not know the difference between starvation and a diet. If you think of it from that perspective, if your body thinks it's starving, why would it want to put any of the energy coming in into reproducing and to bring another human being into the world when it's trying to keep your body fueled and safe? So our body was designed really intelligently in that way. And that's why during times of war, famine, there was a lot less women getting pregnant. That's not by accident. That is by design. So it's not even about eating perfectly, because I think there's this idea out there that, oh, if I just eat perfectly enough, if I just have the most beautiful, perfectly balanced meals, then I'll be able to conceive. It's not even about that. Eating is not about perfection. I think that's where there can also be almost this roadblock for women where they're almost eating too healthy. It's a lot of vegetables, a lot of lean meats, very little fat, or at least what's considered in their mind healthy, and they're not conceiving. If we just take a step back and look at the whole picture, is there enough energy going into the body? Disregarding carbs, protein, fat, is there enough energy overall to maintain bodily functions and to support reproduction? If there's not, that may get shut down. And there's different ways in which that can show up in the body in terms of shutting it down. A well-fed body is a signal that it is safe to conceive. As someone who went 10 years without a cycle because she was not getting enough energy in, and then even when she was, my input was not making up for the output of energy. So a lot of times we can also see, oh, like you quote unquote might be eating enough, but you're also burning off all of these calories through physical activity, through a really busy life. So what you think is enough may not actually be enough to keep up with the lifestyle and the demands that you have right now. That's why I think it's so important to not get super hyper focused on this is the right diet, these are the right amount of calories for me right now, because our body is meant to change and is constantly changing as our lifestyle and our demands and just everything. We're always in flow. And that's why diets also don't work, because they don't teach you how to actually tune into your own body and determine, okay, what does it feel like to get enough calories in? You'll know there's a significant shift in a woman's body that I can see in my clients when they start fueling with enough calories. Their focus comes back online, their libido comes back online, they're less irritable, they're less anxious, they have more energy, they don't have to rely on caffeine. There's so many benefits and signs that your body is getting enough fuel. This even applies to men. So if you are listening to this podcast with your significant other, eating enough is not just for women. There's this under eating for men too. And because right now, there's so much pressure. There's GLP-1s and there's intermittent fasting and there's all of these things to try to manipulate the body to get it to look a certain way or be a certain way. And I'm not saying that there may not be benefits with those modalities in some situations, but overall as a whole, our world is chronically under eating. We have a metabolic issue as a population because our bodies are in one extreme or the next, right? There's this extreme of the overconsumption of food or quote unquote food, like prepackaged foods and what I would consider fake foods, like they are not energetically nutrient dense. And then there's also this underconsumption of overall calories, or how can I manipulate or trick my body into thinking that it's full, or how can I manipulate things so that I can survive off of less calories? There's always this idea of, oh, I need to do less. And that's not necessarily true. That's not true at all. So let's understand what undereating can actually look like, because if you're like me 10 years ago, I could have sworn I wasn't undereating. I was like, oh no, I'm eating enough. These are just some subtle things that may be happening for you that you can relate to. Skipping breakfast or eating very little food in the morning. Maybe you're surviving off of a banana with peanut butter or a hard-boiled egg or a granola bar. Is not enough fuel to start your day. If you're going longer than 5 to 6 hours between meals, that's not really conducive to supporting healthy blood sugars, to supporting a healthy mood, and supporting your reproductive system, to supporting your hormone production. Eating clean, but not eating enough volume, nutrient density, or calories. So I see this a lot of like, oh, I eat super healthy. There's no way I'm not eating enough. Like it can't be my diet. Sometimes when we get a little too restrictive, a little too rigid with food, not only does that show up in us not eating enough calories overall, but it can also show up in the psychological stress that causes us, because we're constantly thinking about food in a way of like control and managing. And am I doing this perfectly? If you're feeling stressed about eating meals that are outside of what you would consider ideal, that also creates stress in the body. Part of it is, yes, getting enough fuel, but the other part of it is your relationship to eating and your relationship to food. I'm going to link some resources in the show notes on different books on where to start with that, because I know healing my own relationship with food, as I talked about in episode 1, was a huge part of my healing journey with my body. My body communicates with me through my menstrual cycle. So when I start to see that my cycles are a little bit funky, I always have to look, am I eating enough? Am I having any stress around food, any rigidity at all? Am I hyper-focused on eating a certain way or not eating certain things or anything like that that can create more stress? Another one is intermittent fasting. And I do see this a lot. Now, there are some benefits to intermittent fasting with supporting blood sugar regulation, but overall, I have not had a single client who long-term has benefited from doing that. Because again, when we go long stretches of time without eating, our body doesn't know the difference between a diet or starvation. All it knows is, hey, I'm starving right now. It's going to naturally produce more cortisol. It's going to lower certain reproductive hormones because it's not really sure when more fuel is going to come in. So it's trying to keep you safe and to keep you nourished. What can happen too is if we're going long periods of time without eating, if we are chronically under eating, unintentionally or intentionally, our metabolism will slow down so that our body breaks down food slower and uses food from energy slower because it's trying to keep as much energy that's coming in because it's not sure when more energy is coming in. If you are exercising a lot, so your exercise output is pretty big. If you're someone who's working out 2 hours a day, if you can't take rest days, if what you're eating is always so connected to if you've been physically active, that can be a huge sign of like, okay, there might be some patterns here, some connections here in terms of how you're fueling and your hormone production. And if you're chronically underestimating how much you need. I remember recently working with a fertility client, and we were talking about really slowly introducing in more nutrient-rich foods and bulking up her meals gradually. We never want to go from one extreme to the next. The body doesn't respond well from jumping from one extreme to the next. So we take things slowly. It was gradually increasing in a way that her body would feel good doing it, that it wouldn't cause any weird symptoms or bloating or just feeling overly full, but also slowly re-nourishing her body and giving her enough fuel. And I remember in the beginning, she was like, wow, this feels like so much food. And it can feel like that when you've lived your life eating an amount that is probably enough for a toddler, and your metabolism has adjusted for that. That's why it's so beneficial to work with someone who can really gradually work you up in calories and nutrients and whatever it is that you're needing so that your body responds well, so that you feel good doing it. Because I don't ever want you to feel more overwhelmed by our work together. And I want you to feel good. If at some point something's not working for you body-wise, I want you to tell me, because you know your body best and your body will always communicate with you when something's working and when it's not. And some bodies just need to take things slower. And even for our own mindset, sometimes we're not ready to make that shift yet. And so gradual small changes can feel more inviting, more doable. Now we're going to talk about some signs that you are potentially not eating enough. Your cycle is a vital sign, and it will always tell you information. So it'll give you information. That's why I'm a huge proponent of tracking your cycle, because it can share so much information without ever having to do fancy lab tests. You get data every single month if you're tracking it. If you are having irregular cycles or missing periods, so if you're going longer than 35 days, that's a little bit long. If you are skipping months, if your cycles are showing up and then they ghost you for a few months, that's pretty irregular. If there's months where you're 28 days and then you're 40 days and then you're back to 22 days and then you're, that's very irregular. So we want our cycle to be fairly consistent. Obviously, it may not be the exact same like 28-day cycle every single month, but overall, it should be fairly consistent. And that shows that your body feels like it's in a consistent, balanced state. If you have a short luteal phase, so your luteal phase is right after ovulation up until the day of your menstrual cycle, your bleed. If that time frame is less than 10 days, that's a sign that there could be some undereating happening. Because what happens when you undereat is you don't have this like strong ovulation. Again, your body's not prioritizing conception. Ovulation may not be very strong. Progesterone production may not be very strong. And so when we don't have a strong ovulation, if we're not ovulating, if not enough progesterone is being produced, then that luteal phase ends up being shorter. And so we start our period sooner. You want at least an 11-day luteal phase to be producing enough progesterone to support a healthy pregnancy. Not even just support a healthy pregnancy, but just overall for your health. If you're having extremely light periods or a very, very light flow, if you're not actually ovulating, and you can, and we can do a whole episode on this, you can actually be bleeding and not have actually ovulated. People think that the bleed is the main focus of a menstrual cycle, of an entire menstrual cycle. It's actually ovulation. Having that ovulation means that you are in a fertile state. Now, here are some physical signs. So if you are always feeling cold, especially with your extremities, so hands and feet, or if you're always the person in the room that's like, oh my gosh, it's freezing in here, I'm so cold, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? That's a great sign that you're likely under eating. That's also a really good sign that your thyroid is probably struggling a little bit. Under eating, chronic under eating really impacts our thyroid, and our thyroid dictates how we're going to produce hormones. Also our metabolic rate, our metabolism, our digestion, all the things. If you are feeling extremely low energy in the early afternoon, if you're having these energy crashes and you're like, man, 2 or 3 p.m., I'm like just toast, like I am done for the day, or that's when I start craving a lot of carbohydrates, or you might even find yourself craving sweets or carbs in the evening after dinner, maybe between dinner and bed. You're like, why am I all of a sudden now so hungry? Oh my gosh, this is like the number one thing I see. Women think that it's because they're addicted to sweets or they're addicted to carbs and they just have no control. It has nothing to do with that. That is not a sign that there's something wrong. It is a sign that your body's still hungry because, like I said, your body's really smart. God made our bodies so intelligent. So if in the first half of the day, we're not eating enough, and the first half of the day, we can kind of get by doing that. And then by middle of the afternoon or even by the evening, if we have not gotten enough calories in our bodies, like I'm hungry, I need some fuel, it's going to ramp up our hunger and cause us to have some cravings. The reason why there's a lot of cravings with carbohydrates and sweets, it's not because you're addicted. It's not because you can't control yourself around them. It's because your body knows that carbohydrates are a really, really easy fuel for your body. Our body is able to digest them really quickly and get energy really quickly. So when you're really undernourished, or if you have extremely low energy, your body's going to be like, oh, wow, okay, that's a great option for me to get fuel and have energy so fast. That's one of the reasons why you might be craving those things. It has nothing to do with self-control, and you are not addicted to food. Okay. I just need you to hear that because I think more women need to know that. Another one is if your hair is thinning or you have excess shedding, again, that really goes hand in hand with hypothyroidism. So a sluggish thyroid. If you're waking up in the middle of the night, oof, this is such a big one. If you are having trouble falling asleep or you're waking up in the middle of the night, especially between 2 and 4 a.m., or you're waking up extremely early and can't fall back asleep and almost feel a little bit anxious, that could be a big sign that you're not eating enough. If you're not eating enough, your blood sugar can drop overnight, especially between that 2 and 4 p.m. 4 a.m. time frame. That's usually a blood sugar issue, which we'll have to do a whole episode on blood sugar regulation and how closely that is tied to fertility and ovulation, because that's huge. I'm actually wearing a glucose monitor right now. So every once in a while, I like to pop one on, and I have my clients do this as well. If someone has diabetes, like, yes, of course, they're going to be focusing on that. But I can't tell you how many women we work with that have some type of blood sugar dysregulation, insulin sensitivity, purely because of the way that they're living their life and how they're eating. Again, the body responds in different ways to that. So it's good to get data to say, okay, your body's definitely having some low blood sugars here. It's having some high blood sugars here. Let's figure this out. Let's create a plan for you that feels more doable and that supports your body to feel safe, because blood sugar dysregulation is also another signal that something's off here in the body and it may not be the best time to conceive. Okay, constipation or slow digestion. This is also a huge one. A lot of our clients come to us saying, I get really bloated. I have trouble going to the bathroom. If you are not pooping every single day, we have to change something in your diet, because pooping, one of the ways that you excrete toxins and excrete excess estrogen is through your poop. So if you are not pooping daily, we need to get you doing that. It's a huge sign that you may not be eating enough. And it's actually this vicious cycle that I see too, is women get really uncomfortable because they're bloated, they feel constipated, they don't want to eat because they feel that way. But in fact, eating more and eating more regularly will help improve digestion and help you feel less bloated, help you have more regular bowel movements. The number of clients that we've had come to us and they're like, I don't usually go to the bathroom for like 2 to 3 days. And then they start working with us and they're going to the bathroom twice a day. Like, it is great. And we talk about poop a lot. So that is just something, there's nothing off limits when we work together, because I mean, we got to talk about it all. Bodily fluids, they're all signs of what's happening in the body. Okay, I mentioned how important it is to not only be eating enough for just energetically getting enough fuel, but then also that our mindset is in a great place with food and how we're fueling. Even if you are eating enough, but you have a restrictive mindset, your body is still going to have that stress response of thinking that it's in starvation mode. Let's say that for Lent, you gave up chocolate, and then all of a sudden, all you want is chocolate, right? You see it everywhere. You think about it. You want it so badly. And it's not because you're addicted to it. It's because it was taken away from you. As human beings, when you tell someone they can't have something, they want it even more. That's so similar to how our body responds to food. If we think that we're on a diet, even if we're not, or if we think that we're restricting, even if we're technically eating enough calories, our body is going to be in this hyper state of awareness around food and create this internal stressor in our body. If you're feeling really irritable or anxious, especially when you're hungry, so the hangry comes out, that could be a really big sign that either you're going way too long in between meals or you're just overall not fueling enough. A big one too is if you feel like any little stressor in your life feels like a big stressor, here's the reason why that's happening. Undereating, underfueling is a stressor on the body. So when your body's in survival mode, right? It's not in a safe, feeling nourished, feeling grounded mode. It's in survival mode. Okay. So cortisol might be even higher. Blood sugars are wonky. If you're in that stressed out state, and then there's any other little stressor that comes with life, because those always come because it's life, and you feel like they're this huge thing. I'm thinking about when I've been hangry and Brett, my husband, does something so simple and I'm just like, it's so interesting because in those moments, we know we're not being our best self. And I think now we're both at a point where we're like, oh, I was actually just hungry. I don't think I got enough for breakfast this morning, or whatever the case may be. And you can start to see that play out in other people too. And I love that because it also gives you, or at least it gives me, this grace for people. Even with me and my husband, something, if I notice he's a little bit more irritable, I ask him like, hey, did you get a chance to have lunch today? When's the last time you ate? Do you need a snack? And a lot of times he's like, you know what? I think you're right. And so he'll eat something and be like, I feel so much better. We're all wired the same way, y'all. So this isn't about like, oh my gosh, you're doing this wrong. This is really about building awareness so that you can support yourself and your partner in the best way possible. Okay, another one could be difficulty concentrating. So when our body is in this state of survival, of course it's going to be thinking about food more because it's trying to get our attention. It's like, okay, well, when's our next meal? When am I going to eat next? Like, I'm hungry. And so that's normal. A lot of women don't realize that one of the first signs of hunger is thinking about food. I know when I've worked with women as an intuitive eating counselor, I've worked with women in helping them understand what does hunger and fullness feel like in their body and the different levels of hunger and fullness. A lot of women are like, oh, it's when my stomach starts rumbling. And I'm like, no, that's actually one of the last stages of like your body's really trying to get your attention because it's thought about food, it's had trouble focusing, it's had all these other signs. It's been more irritable. And then all of a sudden it's like you're starving. So your stomach's going to start growling because it knows that's a noise. You're going to hear that. It's like, hopefully you pay attention to that signal. Another part too is understanding the hunger fullness scale of what are your own body sensations and symptoms to know that you're hungry. So there's a great workbook, the Intuitive Eating Workbook, and I'll link it below. It's a phenomenal workbook to really get more in tune of your own relationship with food and really understanding your own hunger and fullness cues, when you actually feel satisfied from meals and when you're just full, because full and satisfied, we could do a whole episode on that. Those are two very different things. You can get physically full and still want more food because you weren't satisfied with your meal. Okay, blood sugar. Skipping meals can cause blood sugar issues, blood sugar swings, which can cause cortisol dysregulation, which can then cause stress in the body. We're going for safe and regulated and nourished in order to support fertility. All this to say, as you're listening to this episode, as you're kind of checking off in your head, okay, like that sounds like me. Okay, that checks out. Or even if you're going to do the intuitive eating workbook, I want you to really start to think about your body's signals as information. And your body, especially with fertility, it's not punishing you. When you are having fertility struggles, your body is actually doing exactly what it was designed to do because your body needs to feel nourished, safe, regulated in order to conceive. God knew that. He wants you to be your best self when you conceive. You can think about that in so many different ways. And it's not even that you have to be in this like perfect place. Going through pregnancy, going into motherhood, like we are always changing and evolving and growing. And it's not about being perfect at any state, but it is about, can you be in a place where your body can support your body and another human's body? It is that beautiful that we get to actually carry an entire human being inside of us, grow an entire human being inside of us. That takes a lot of energy. That takes a lot of calories. So you have to start with nourishing yourself consistently and really from a place of, I need to fuel to be able to create, because getting pregnant, staying pregnant, you are bringing a new life into the world. So please, please, please start with, instead of looking at what diet do I need to follow, what do I need to cut out of my diet, how, strict do I need to be, just really look at, am I eating enough on a daily basis? And if not, where can I start? I'm going to link my book, Intuitively Full, in the show notes. It is my story of healing my relationship with food. If you are struggling with disordered eating, an eating disorder, or even if you don't think you have either of those, but you know that you need some support, please find the support that you need. There's a reason why this is such a big part of working with us, is really diving into making sure your body's fueled, making sure you're nourished, making sure you're in a good place, because all of the protocols, all of the fancy lab tests, all of the fancy supplements aren't really going to do what they need to do if your body doesn't even have the energy to sustain the body systems it needs to. I'm going to give you an idea of what eating enough can look like. I would say 3 meals a day. Each person is different, but 3 meals a day gives you the bare basics, right? You're getting a good breakfast, ideally within an hour to 2 of waking. An hour would be more favorable for your hormones and your fertility. Good lunch, good dinner, getting some good snacks in between, not going longer than 5 to 6 hours between meals. If you are physically active, making sure that you're eating in a way that supports your physical activity. It's not about working out because you ate a lot. It's about, I actually get to move my body because I'm fueling well enough to move my body and also live my life. Again, really working on your relationship with food. If you know that there are foods that you are scared of, that you cannot eat, if you know that you are highly focused on eating too healthy, that could actually be a big roadblock for you. Not even physically, but mentally. And your body feels that. Your body feels everything you think and say. Okay, to close out, if you're not sure where to start, 3 meals a day. If you're not doing that, start with doing that. I know lunch is one that is really, really commonly skipped. And then not eating enough at breakfast is another huge roadblock I see for women. Start with those 2, 3 times a day, whatever it's going to take for you to do that. And then eating a good breakfast. I would say at minimum 500 calorie breakfast. If you're like nowhere near that, if you're not eating breakfast at all, then start with eating something. Okay, so baby steps. So if you're not eating anything for breakfast, if you're skipping breakfast, start having something. I don't even care what it is. Just start with something and then work your way up from there. It was so great to be with y'all today. I hope you found this podcast episode helpful, and I will see y'all next time.